Everyone expected her to scream. Everyone expected her to fight for every penny. Instead, Emily signed the divorce papers with a terrifying calmness that chilled the courtroom to the bone. Her ex-husband, Marcus, laughed as she walked out with nothing but the clothes on her back, convinced he had won. He thought he had broken her. But he didn't know who was waiting outside. He didn't know that the moment she stepped onto that rainy sidewalk, she wasn't stepping into poverty. She was stepping into an empire. When the black Rolls-Royce pulled up, Marcus stopped laughing. And when he saw who was inside, he realized his life was over. The heavy oak doors of the Manhattan family court, usually a gateway to screaming matches and tearful pleas, were strangely quiet today. Inside courtroom 3B, the air was thick with the scent of floor wax and expensive cologne, specifically the oud wood cologne worn by Marcus Sterling. Marcus sat sprawled in his chair, adjusting the cuffs of his Italian suit. He looked every bit the successful tech mogul he claimed to be. Beside him, his lawyer, Silas Vance, a man known in the city as the Shark, was stacking documents with a smug rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. On the other side of the aisle sat Emily. She wore a faded grey trench coat that had seen better days. Her hands, resting on the wooden table, were bare. The diamond ring that had once sat on her finger was gone, sold 3 months ago, just to pay the retainer for a lawyer who hadn't even bothered to show up today. She was alone. "Mr. Vance," Judge Harrison said, peering over his spectacles, "does the respondent have representation?" Silas Vance stood up, buttoning his jacket with a sneer. "It appears not, Your Honor. Mrs. Sterling seems to have accepted the reality of her situation. We are ready to proceed with the default judgment." Marcus leaned over, whispering loud enough for Emily to hear. "Save yourself the embarrassment, Elle. Just sign the papers. You can't afford to fight me. You can't even afford a cab ride home." Emily didn't flinch. She didn't turn her head. She just stared at the great seal of the state, hanging behind the judge. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed with the exhaustion of sleepless nights, but her posture was rigid. "Mrs. Sterling," Judge Harrison asked, his voice softer, perhaps sensing the uneven playing field. "You understand the terms presented by your husband? He is claiming full ownership of the marital home in the Hamptons, the apartment in Tribeca, and all stocks related to Sterling Dynamics. He is offering a one-time settlement of $10,000. Do you contest this?" The courtroom went silent. Even the court stenographer paused, fingers hovering over the keys, waiting for the outburst. $10,000 for a 10-year marriage to a man worth millions was an insult. It was a slap in the face. Marcus smirked, checking his watch. He had a lunch reservation at Le Bernardin with his mistress, a 22-year-old model named Jessica, and he didn't want to be late. "Come on, Emily," he muttered. "Don't be dramatic." Emily stood up. The chair scraped harsh against the floor. She reached into her purse. Silas Vance tensed, ready to object to whatever evidence she might pull out. Marcus rolled his eyes. But Emily didn't pull out evidence. She didn't pull out a photo of Marcus entering a hotel with Jessica. She didn't pull out bank statements showing he had been siphoning money into offshore accounts. She pulled out a black pen. "I don't contest it," Emily said. Her voice was raspy, unused, but steady. "Excuse me?" Judge Harrison blinked. "Mrs. Sterling, I am duty-bound to inform you that these terms are highly unfavorable. You have rights to equitable distribution." "I said I don't contest it," she repeated, cutting the judge off. She walked to the bench, the sound of her cheap boots echoing in the silent room. She took the document from the clerk. Marcus looked at Silas, confused. What is she doing? "She's giving up," Silas whispered back, a grin spreading across his face. You broke her, Marcus. She knows she can't win. Emily signed her name. Emily Sterling. The ink was dark and final. She didn't shake. She didn't cry. She placed the pen down with a deliberate click. "Is that all, Your Honor?" she asked. If you are certain," the judge stammered, clearly uncomfortable. "Then yes. The divorce is granted. You are dismissed." Emily turned around. She looked at Marcus for the first time in 6 months. Marcus expected to see defeat. He expected to see a woman begging for a little more, maybe asking to keep the dog or the car. He wanted to see the fear in her eyes, the fear of a 40-year-old woman with no resume, no money, and no husband entering a brutal world. But Emily's eyes were dry. They were cold. It was like looking into a frozen lake. "Goodbye, Marcus," she said. "Enjoy the 10 grand, Emily." Marcus laughed, the tension breaking into arrogance. "Try not to spend it all on cat food." She didn't respond. She simply pushed open the heavy wooden doors and walked out. Outside, the weather had turned. The grey sky had opened up, and a torrential downpour was hammering the streets of New York. The wind whipped around the pillars of the courthouse, turning umbrellas inside out. Marcus and Silas emerged 5 minutes later, laughing loudly. "Did you see her face?" Marcus guffawed, lighting a cigar under the shelter of the courthouse overhang. "She was mute, totally mute. God, I should have done this years ago." "You're a free man, Mr. Sterling," Silas said, checking his phone. "And a rich one. She didn't touch the stock options. That alone saved you $4 million. "She's an idiot," Marcus said, blowing smoke into the rain. "She always was. Content with being a housewife. No ambition, no spine. Look at her." Marcus pointed. Down at the bottom of the grand staircase, Emily was standing on the sidewalk. She didn't have an umbrella. The rain was soaking her grey coat, plastering her hair to her face. She looked small, pathetic. "Should we offer her a ride to the subway?" Silas joked cruelly. "Nah," Marcus sneered. "Let her walk. It builds character." Emily stood motionless in the rain. She wasn't looking for a taxi. She wasn't checking her phone for a bus route. She was just standing there, staring at the traffic, water dripping from her nose. Suddenly, the traffic seemed to part. A low hum vibrated through the wet asphalt. Around the corner, a vehicle appeared. It wasn't a yellow cab. It wasn't an Uber. It was a sleek, extended, phantom Rolls-Royce, customized in a midnight blue so dark it looked black. The chrome rims gleamed even in the gloomy weather. It moved with the heavy, silent grace of a predator. Marcus stopped laughing. "Whoa, nice ride. Wonder who that is. Maybe the mayor." The Rolls-Royce didn't pass by. It slowed down. It pulled up directly in front of the soaking wet woman in the grey coat. "No way," Silas muttered. "Is it stopping for her?" "Don't be stupid," Marcus scoffed. "She's probably blocking the loading zone. They're going to honk at her to move." They didn't honk. The back door of the Rolls-Royce clicked open. A driver, dressed in an immaculate uniform with white gloves, stepped out into the pouring rain. He didn't seem to care about getting wet. He walked around the car with a large black umbrella, opening it swiftly and holding it over Emily's head. He didn't just hold the umbrella. He bowed. It was a sharp, respectful bow, the kind you give to royalty. "Who the hell is that?" Marcus whispered, the cigar nearly falling from his mouth. Emily didn't look surprised. She nodded to the driver. Then she turned back toward the courthouse steps. She looked up, directly at Marcus. The distance was far, but Marcus saw it. A smile. Not a polite smile. A terrifying, predatory smile. She ducked into the back seat of the car. The driver closed the door with a solid thud that echoed like a gunshot. But before the car pulled away, The rear window rolled down just an inch. Marcus squinted. He saw a man sitting inside next to Emily. He couldn't see the face clearly, but he saw the hand resting on the windowsill. On the pinky finger was a distinctive ring, a heavy gold signet with a crest of a roaring lion. Marcus froze. His blood ran cold. He knew that ring. He had seen it on the cover of Forbes, on the news, in the nightmares of every CEO in the city. "That's impossible," Marcus stammered, his face draining of color. "What?" Silas asked. "Who is it?" "That ring," Marcus choked out. "That's the crest of the Thorne family. That's Julian Thorne." Silas dropped his briefcase. Julian Thorne, the billionaire recluse, the man who owns half the tech infrastructure in North America? Marcus, if he's involved. The Rolls-Royce engine purred, a deep growl of power. It peeled away from the curb, splashing water onto the sidewalk, and disappeared into the New York traffic. Marcus was left standing on the steps, the rain blowing into his face, his expensive cigar soggy and ruined. "Why?" Marcus whispered, his voice trembling. "Why is my ex-wife getting into a car with the man who could buy and sell my entire company before breakfast?" His phone buzzed in his pocket. Then it buzzed again, and again. A constant, frantic vibration. Marcus pulled it out with shaking hands. It was his chief financial officer. "What?" Marcus barked into the phone. "Marcus, where are you?" The CFO screamed, panic audible in his voice. "You need to get to the office. Now." "I just got divorced, Jerry. I'm celebrating." "What is it?" "It's the stock," the CFO yelled. "Sterling Dynamics. Someone just initiated a hostile takeover. They're buying everything. The price is plummeting. We're losing control." "Who?" Marcus screamed, staring at the empty spot where the Rolls-Royce had been. "Who is buying us?" "It's a holding company we've never seen before," the CFO gasped. "It's called Nemesis Global." Marcus dropped the phone. It shattered on the wet concrete. Nemesis, the goddess of revenge. He looked at Silas, whose face was as white as a sheet. "She didn't sign the papers because she gave up," Marcus whispered, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. "She signed them because she didn't need my money anymore. She has his." The interior of the Rolls-Royce was a sanctuary of silence, insulated from the chaos of the New York storm by bulletproof glass and inches of steel. The air smelled of aged leather and faint traces of jasmine. Emily sat back against the plush seat, closing her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, the dull, defeated look she had worn in the courtroom was gone. In its place was a sharpness, a clarity that could cut glass. She reached up and pulled the hair tie from her messy bun, letting her dark hair cascade over her shoulders. She ran her fingers through it, shaking off the persona of the long-suffering housewife like a snake shedding dead skin. "Champagne?" the man beside her asked. Julian Thorne didn't look like a savior. He looked like a king in exile. He was in his late 30s, with sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of steel. He wore a suit that cost more than Marcus's car, but he wore it casually, as if he didn't care. He held out a crystal flute, bubbling with vintage Dom Perignon. Emily took the glass but didn't drink. She looked at him. "Is it done?" "The acquisition began the moment your pen lifted from the divorce papers," Julian said, his voice deep and smooth. "My team at Nemesis Global triggered the buy orders at 12:01 p.m. By the time Marcus gets to his office, he'll own less than 40% of his own company. By tomorrow morning, he'll be an employee in a building he used to rule." Emily took a slow sip. The bubbles burned pleasantly against her throat. "And the house in the Hamptons?" "Bought by a shell corporation," Julian replied with a faint smirk. "We're turning it into a dog shelter. I thought that was a nice touch." Emily actually laughed. It was a dry, rusty sound. "He hates dogs. He's allergic." "I know," Julian said. "I read the file." He pressed a button on the console, and a hidden compartment slid open. Inside was a sleek, silver laptop and a fresh set of clothes, a tailored white blazer, silk blouse, and trousers that screamed power. "You have a meeting in 2 hours," Julian said, his tone shifting from friend to business partner. "The board of Thorn Enterprises is expecting you. They're nervous, Emily. They haven't seen The Architect in 10 years. Some of them think you're a myth. Others think you're dead." Emily looked at the laptop. She traced the edge of the device. 10 years ago, before she was Emily Sterling, the invisible wife of a mid-level tech arrogance, she was Emily Vane. In the world of high-stakes corporate espionage and strategy, she was known simply as the Architect. She didn't just build companies, she engineered their dominance. She could look at a balance sheet and see the future. She could look at a COO and see their breaking point. But she had fallen in love. Or at least, she thought she had. She had met Marcus, a charming, ambitious dreamer, and she had wanted a normal life. She wanted to be a wife, maybe a mother. She wanted peace. So she buried Emily Vane. She dumbed herself down. She nodded when Marcus explained simple concepts to her. She cooked his meals while he cheated on her. She supported him while he belittled her intelligence. For 10 years she played the fool. But she had been watching. She had been listening. Every time Marcus took a call on speakerphone, every time he left a confidential file on the kitchen counter, she absorbed it. She knew where the bodies were buried because she had watched him dig the graves. "I'm not Emily Vane anymore," she whispered. "No," Julian agreed. "You're something more dangerous. You're a woman with a score to settle." He leaned forward. "I held up my end of the bargain, Emily. Marcus is being dismantled. His reputation will be shredded. He will be destitute. Now, I need you to hold up yours. My company is bleeding. The Asian markets are crushing us. I need the strategy you promised me. I need the fix." Emily set the champagne down. Her eyes narrowed. The softness was gone completely now. "Give me the laptop," she said. Julian handed it to her. She cracked it open, her fingers flying across the keyboard with a speed and precision that hadn't diminished in a decade. "Cancel the merger with Omnicorp," she said, not looking up. "It's a trap. Their debt is hidden in offshore subsidiaries in the Caymans. I saw Marcus trying to replicate their structure last year. It's a house of cards." Julian raised an eyebrow, impressed. He pulled out his phone and sent a text. "Done. What else?" "Short the lithium futures," Emily continued, her eyes scanning streams of data. "And set up a meeting with the Minister of Trade in Singapore. Tell him the Architect remembers the favor he owes from 2015. Julian smiled, a genuine, relieved smile. "Welcome back, Emily." She stopped typing and looked out the rain-streaked window. They were passing Central Park. "Marcus thinks he took everything from me," she said quietly. "He thinks he took my youth, my confidence. But he forgot the one thing I never gave him." "What's that?" "My mind," Emily said. "Driver?" "Change of destination." The driver's eyes appeared in the rearview mirror. "Yes, Mum?" "We're not going to the airfield yet," Emily said, a cold smile forming on her lips. "Take us to the Sterling Dynamics headquarters. I want to see the fire while it's still burning." The headquarters of Sterling Dynamics was a glass monolith in the financial district, a monument to Marcus Sterling's ego. Usually, the lobby was a hushed cathedral of commerce. Today, it was a riot. Marcus burst through the revolving doors, water dripping from his ruined suit. He ignored the security guards who tried to salute him. He ran for the elevators, Silas Vance trailing behind him, struggling to keep up with his heavy briefcase. "Why aren't the phones working?" Marcus screamed at his assistant, a terrified young woman named Sarah, as he stormed past her desk. "They are working, Mr. Sterling," Sarah cried, holding a phone to her chest. "They just won't stop ringing. It's the shareholders, the press. The SEC is online too." "The SEC?" Marcus froze, his hand on his office door. "Why the hell is the Securities and Exchange Commission calling me?" "Insider trading allegations," Sarah whispered, her face pale. "Someone leaked the emails, sir. The emails about the Project Horizon cover-up." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. He staggered into his office and slammed the door. "That's impossible," he hissed at Silas. "Those emails were on a private server, encrypted. Only I had the password. I wrote them on my laptop at home." Silas slumped onto the leather sofa, loosening his tie. "At home," Silas repeated slowly. "Where your wife lived. The wife you just humiliated in court. The wife you called an idiot? She didn't know the password," Marcus yelled, pacing the room. It was complex. It was my birthday, backwards." Silas put his head in his hands. "You are an idiot, Marcus. A colossal idiot." Marcus rushed to his computer. The screen was flashing red. The stock ticker for Sterling Dynamics, SDYN, was in freefall. It had opened at $145 a share. It was now trading at 62 euros. Ding. An email notification popped up on his screen. It wasn't from his CFO. It wasn't from the lawyers. It was from an external address, nemesisathornind.com. The subject line read, "Checkmate." Marcus clicked it with a trembling finger. There was no text in the body of the email, just an attachment, a video file. He clicked play. The video showed a live feed. It was a camera positioned across the street from his building. It showed the front entrance of Sterling Dynamics. In the video, the black Rolls-Royce pulled up to the curb. "Is that—" Marcus squinted at the screen. "Is that live?" He ran to his office window and looked down. 40 stories below, he saw the black car. He saw the crowd of paparazzi that had gathered, sensing blood in the water. In the video, the door opened. First, Julian Thorne stepped out. The crowd went wild. Flashes erupted like lightning, but Julian didn't walk in. He turned and offered his hand to someone inside. A woman stepped out. She wasn't wearing the grey trench coat anymore. She was wearing a white power suit that glowed against the gloom of the storm. Her hair was loose and wild. She looked taller, fiercer. She looked up, not at the cameras. She looked up at the building. Specifically, she looked up at the 40th floor. Marcus stumbled back from the window. "It's Emily." "What is she doing here?" Silas asked, joining him at the window. On the screen, Emily walked into the building, flanked by Julian Thorne and a phalanx of security guards. "She's coming up," Marcus whispered. "She's coming here." "You can't let her in," Silas said. "Security won't clear her." Marcus's intercom buzzed. It was Sarah again. Her voice was shaking. "Mr. Sterling, Mr. Thorne is here to see you, and Mrs. Sterling." "Tell them to leave," Marcus screamed. "Tell security to throw them out." "I can't, sir," Sarah squeaked. "Mr. Thorne just bought the building's debt. He technically owns the elevators." The elevator doors outside Marcus's office chimed, a cheerful, bright sound that signaled doom. Marcus grabbed a paperweight, purely out of instinct, then put it down, realizing how pathetic he looked. He straightened his tie. He tried to compose his face into a mask of authority. The doors to his office burst open. Emily didn't walk in. She swept in. The energy in the room shifted instantly. The air felt thinner, charged with electricity. Julian Thorne leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, looking like a bodyguard who owned the place. "Get out," Marcus snarled, though his voice cracked. "You have no business here. We're divorced. You signed the papers." Emily stopped in front of his desk. She looked down at the mahogany surface where she had once brought him lunch, only to be told she was interrupting important genius work. She picked up the nameplate that read Marcus Sterling, CEO. "I did sign the papers," Emily said. Her voice was different. It was the voice of the woman who had once negotiated treaties between oil giants. "And I want to thank you for that, Marcus. That settlement was the best deal I ever made." "You got 10 grand!" Marcus laughed nervously. "You got nothing. I got my freedom," she said calmly. "And I got immunity. Since we are no longer married, I am no longer liable for the debts you are about to incur. And I am no longer bound by spousal privilege. I can testify." "Testify about what?" Silas asked, standing up. Emily turned her gaze to the lawyer. Silas shrank back. "About the bribes to the zoning commissioner for the warehouse project," Emily listed, ticking them off on her fingers. "About the safety reports you falsified for the new battery prototype. About the fact that Jessica isn't just a model, but the niece of your competitor, and she's been recording your pillow talk for 6 months. Marcus's jaw dropped. "Jessica? No. She loves me." "She loves your Amex Black card," Emily corrected, which, by the way, was just declined at Cartier. I saw the alert on the shared cloud before I disconnected it. Marcus slumped into his chair. "What do you want, Emily? Money? I'll give you money. We can tear up the divorce papers. We can work this out." Emily laughed. It was a cold, genuine laugh. "I don't want your money, Marcus. I have my own now. I'm the new Chief Strategy Officer for Thorne Enterprises. My signing bonus was more than your company made in the last 2 quarters combined." She dropped the nameplate into the trash can. Clunk. "I came here to tell you to run," she said softly. "Run?" "The SEC is in the lobby," she said. "Julian stalled them for 2 minutes so I could come up here. They have the warrants. You have about—" She checked her Cartier watch. 60 seconds before they put you in handcuffs. Marcus looked at the door. He looked at the window. He looked at Emily. "Why?" he whispered. "Why help me run?" Emily leaned in close, her face inches from his. "I'm not helping you run, Marcus. I'm giving you a head start, because the hunt is so much more fun when the prey is moving." She straightened up and turned to Julian. "I'm bored. Let's go." As they turned to leave, the elevator chimed again. This time it wasn't family. 4 agents in FBI windbreakers stepped out. "Marcus Sterling!" the lead agent barked. Emily didn't look back. She walked past the agents, her heels clicking rhythmically on the marble floor. As the agents swarmed into the office and Marcus began to scream for his lawyer, Emily stepped into the elevator with Julian. The doors closed, shutting out the noise of Marcus's destruction. "That was ruthless," Julian said quietly as the elevator descended. There was a hint of admiration in his voice, mixed with a healthy dose of fear. "That was just the opening move," Emily replied, staring at her reflection in the polished brass doors. "Marcus is the pawn. Now I want the king." "The king?" Julian asked. "The man who told Marcus to hide the money," Emily said. "Marcus isn't smart enough to set up the offshore accounts in the Caymans by himself. He had a puppet master. Someone who has been using sterling dynamics to launder money for the cartel." Julian stiffened. "Cartel? Emily, that wasn't in the briefing." "I know," she said. "I saved the best for last. Marcus is going to prison, but he won't survive a week if he talks. And he will talk, which means we just kicked a hornet's nest that spans 3 continents." She smiled, and for the first time, it looked like she was truly enjoying herself. Ready for a real challenge, Julian? 2 weeks later, Marcus Sterling sat on a thin cot in a holding cell at the Metropolitan Detention Center. His Italian suit had been replaced by an orange jumpsuit that smelled of bleach and despair. He hadn't seen the sun in 14 days. His lawyer, Silas, had quit after the first check bounced. Marcus was alone, bankrupt, and terrified. He spent his days staring at the concrete wall, replaying that moment in the rain when the Rolls-Royce pulled away. Meanwhile, across the East River, Emily was stepping into the light. The annual Obsidian Gala was the most exclusive event in New York City. It was where billionaires shook hands to decide the fate of nations. Tonight, the topic of conversation wasn't oil prices or tech stocks. It was the woman on Julian Thorne's arm. When Emily entered the ballroom, the music didn't stop, but the conversation certainly did. She wore a dress of midnight blue velvet that clung to her silhouette like a second skin, with a diamond choker that caught the light with every breath. She looked regal, untouchable. "They're staring," Julian murmured, leaning close to her ear. He looked dashing in a tuxedo, his hand resting protectively on the small of her back. "Let them stare," Emily whispered back, smiling for the cameras. "They're trying to figure out if I'm the victim or the villain." "And which are you? Tonight?" "I'm the bait." They moved through the crowd, Emily accepting congratulations on her appointment as CSO of Thorne Enterprises, with graceful nods. She saw the faces of men who had once ignored her at Marcus's dinner parties. Now, they looked at her with hungry, desperate eyes, hoping she wouldn't target their companies next. "Emily!" a voice boomed. A man approached them. He was older, perhaps 60, with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his cold, dead eyes. He held a glass of scotch as if it were a weapon. "Victor Cray," Julian said, his voice dropping an octave. The tension in his arm spiked. "I didn't think you'd show your face here." Victor Cray was a shipping magnate. On paper, he moved cargo. In reality, according to Emily's intel, he moved everything the law forbade: weapons, narcotics, and dirty money. He was the king Marcus had been washing money for. "I never miss a party, Julian," Victor said smoothly. He turned his gaze to Emily. It felt like a physical touch, slimy and invasive. "And this must be the famous Mrs. Sterling. Or is it Miss Vane again?" "Miss Vane," Emily corrected, her voice ice-cold. "Mrs. Sterling died of boredom." Victor chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "A shame about your ex-husband. Marcus was a useful tool, blunt, a bit dim, but he did what he was told." "You broke my tool, Miss Vane." "That was very inconvenient." "He was defective," Emily replied, taking a sip of champagne. "I just took out the trash. If you lost money in the process, Victor, perhaps you should have vetted your partners better. Or maybe you're just losing your touch." The circle of people around them had widened. The air was thick with unspoken threats. Victor took a step closer. He smelled of cigars and gunpowder. "You think because you're standing next to Julian Thorne that you're safe? Julian is a boy playing with calculators. I play with real consequences. You cost me $50 million last week, Emily. I expect to be reimbursed." "Send me an invoice," Emily smiled. "I'll file it under unforeseen casualties." Victor's eyes narrowed into slits. He leaned in, his voice a whisper that only she could hear. "You're feeling very tall right now, but remember, the taller the tower, the harder it falls. Be careful walking to your car tonight, Miss Vane. Accidents happen in the rain." He patted Julian on the shoulder, a gesture that looked friendly but was clearly a threat, and disappeared into the crowd. Julian grabbed Emily's elbow. "We're leaving. Now." "Not yet," Emily said, her pulse racing, not with fear, but with adrenaline. He just confirmed it. Confirmed what? That he's scared, Emily said. He threatened me publicly. A man like Victor Cray only barks when he doesn't know where to bite. We have him rattled, Julian. Rattled snakes bite, Emily, Julian hissed. Let's go. The drive back to Julian's estate in upstate New York was tense. The rain had returned, lashing against the windshield of the armored SUV. This wasn't the Rolls-Royce. This was the Beast, a military-grade vehicle disguised as a luxury rover. Julian was driving. His security detail was in a follow car behind them. You pushed him too hard, Julian said, checking the rearview mirror for the 10th time. Victor Cray isn't Marcus. He doesn't sue people. He disappears them. I needed him to make a move, Emily said, typing furiously on her laptop. I'm tracking his accounts. The moment he threatened me, I triggered a trace on his phone. He's contacting his cleaners. If I can intercept the location... Suddenly, a bright light blinded them from behind. Crash! The follow car, the security detail, was rammed off the road by a massive heavy-duty truck that surged out of the darkness. The security sedan spun wildly into the ditch, headlights spinning into the trees. Hold on, Julian yelled. He slammed on the accelerator. The Beast roared, its V8 engine screaming as it tore down the wet highway. 2 black SUVs peeled out from a side road, flanking them. They were hunting. They're trying to box us in, Emily shouted, bracing herself against the dashboard. I see them! Julian gritted his teeth. He swerved hard to the left, slamming the side of the Beast into one of the attacking SUVs. Metal screeched against metal, sparks flying like fireworks in the rain. The attacking SUV wobbled, but held its ground. The window of the enemy car rolled down. A man in a ski mask leaned out, holding a submachine gun. Rat-tat-tat-tat! Bullets hammered against the side of Julian's car. The bulletproof glass spiderwebbed but didn't shatter. Get down! Julian screamed, shoving Emily's head down. I can't hack the car if I'm on the floor, Emily yelled back. She sat up, ignoring the bullets pinging off the glass inches from her face. Julian, keep them steady. I'm trying to access their vehicle's onboard computer. Are you insane? Julian shouted, drifting around a sharp curve at 90 miles per hour. Shoot back. There's a Glock in the glove box. I'm an architect, not a soldier, Emily snapped. I fight with code, she typed frantically. The attacking SUV was a modern model, connected to the cloud. It had a weakness. Every smart car had a weakness. Come on, she muttered. The signal bars on her screen flickered. The second SUV rammed them from behind. The Beast fishtailed, skidding dangerously close to the guardrail. Below lay 100-foot drop into a rocky ravine. Emily! Julian roared, wrestling with the steering wheel. Got it! She screamed. She hit enter. On the highway, the lead attacking SUV suddenly locked up. Emily had overridden the electronic braking system, engaging the emergency parking brake at 80 miles per hour. The SUV flipped. It cartwheeled into the air, a mass of twisting metal, and crashed spectacularly into the median, bursting into flames. One down! Emily yelled. One behind us! Julian shouted. The rear SUV was gaining, preparing to ram them off the cliff. Julian looked at Emily. Trust me, he asked. Always, she breathed. Hold on. Julian slammed on the brakes. It was a suicidal move. The SUV behind them didn't have time to react. It smashed into the reinforced rear bumper of the Beast, but the Beast was built like a tank. The attacking SUV crumpled like an accordion upon impact, its engine block shattering. Julian gunned the engine again, pulling away as the wrecked enemy car smoked and stalled on the highway. Silence returned to the car, save for the heavy breathing of 2 people who had just cheated death. Julian slowed down, his knuckles white on the wheel. He looked over at Emily. She was trembling slightly, but her eyes were blazing. You hacked a car, Julian said, a breathless laugh escaping him. At 90 miles an hour. I told you, Emily said, smoothing her hair, though her hands were shaking. I cancelled his merger. Now I cancelled his ride. She looked at the burning wreckage in the rearview mirror. Victor Cray just made a mistake, she whispered. He tried to kill me. Now it's not just business, it's war. Julian reached over and took her hand. His grip was iron hard. We need to go to the safe house, he said. We can't go home. He knows where we live. No, Emily said. She turned to look at him, her face hard. We're not hiding. That's what the old Emily would have done. That's what Marcus's wife would have done. Then what are we doing? We're going to the source, Emily said. That truck that hit our security. I saw the logo on the mud flaps before it hit them. It belongs to Cray Logistics. He's moving a shipment tonight. That's why he's in town. That's why he's desperate. You want to go to the docks? Julian asked, incredulous. Tonight? Alone? Not alone, Emily said, looking at the Glock in the glove box. We have the element of surprise. He thinks we're dead or running. He won't expect the prey to walk right into the wolf's den. She picked up the gun and checked the magazine with a proficiency that surprised Julian. Let's go steal a shipment, Julian. The port of New York was a labyrinth of rusted shipping containers and towering cranes that looked like skeletal dinosaurs against the stormy night sky. The rain had turned into a fine, freezing mist. Julian parked the beast a mile away, hidden behind a derelict warehouse. They moved on foot, slipping through the shadows like ghosts. Emily had swapped her heels for a pair of tactical boots from Julian's trunk, but she still wore the ruined velvet gown, now torn at the hem and soaked with mud. She looked like a fallen queen coming to reclaim her throne with blood and fire. Pier 42, Emily whispered, pointing to a massive hangar where floodlights cut through the gloom. That's Cray's distribution hub. There are guards at the perimeter, Julian noted, scanning the area with a small thermal monocular. 4 of them, armed. They're looking for a frontal assault, Emily said. They're not looking for a system failure. She pulled out her phone. It was cracked from the crash, but functional. She accessed the Port Authority's grid, a back door she had built 5 years ago during a consulting gig for the city. Watch the lights, she murmured. 3 seconds later, the floodlights on Pier 42 surged, blindingly bright, and then exploded in a shower of sparks. The entire pier plunged into darkness. Go, Julian commanded. They sprinted across the open tarmac. The guards were shouting, blinded and confused, their flashlights dancing erratically in the dark. Emily and Julian slipped through a side maintenance door before the backup generators kicked in. Inside, the warehouse was cavernous. It was filled with wooden crates, stamped with the logo of a fruit company. Bananas, Julian whispered, prying a lid open with a crowbar he found near the door. He pushed aside the straw packing. Beneath it wasn't fruit. It was metal, sleek, silver casings. Guidance chips, Emily said, her breath hitching. She picked one up. It was stamped with a familiar serial number, SD Horizon. These are the prototype chips Marcus was developing. He told the board the project was a failure. He told me they were scrap metal. He was selling them to Cray, Julian realized, his face hardening. These chips can guide a missile with millimeter accuracy. Cray isn't just a smuggler, Emily. He's an arms dealer. He's selling American tech to foreign warlords. And Marcus was his supplier, Emily said, disgust curling her lip. My ex-husband wasn't just a cheater. He was a traitor. Touching realization, a voice boomed from the catwalk above, but a little too late. The backup generators slammed on with a deafening hum. High-intensity lights flooded the warehouse floor. Emily and Julian froze. Victor Cray stood on the metal gantry 20 feet above them. He was flanked by 6 men holding assault rifles. The exits were blocked. "You are a persistent woman, Emily," Victor called down, his voice echoing off the steel walls. "I have to admire the tenacity. Hacking my car, brilliant. Shutting down my power, classic. But here, in the real world, bullets beat brains every time." Julian stepped in front of Emily, shielding her body with his. "Let her go, Victor. It's me you want. I'm the competition." "Oh, Julian," Victor laughed, descending the metal stairs slowly, savoring the moment. "You're not competition. You're a nuisance. But her? She's a loose end. And I hate loose ends." He reached the ground floor and walked toward them, stopping 10 feet away. He signaled his men, the rifles raised in unison. "Any last words?" Victor sneered. "Perhaps a final strategy." Emily stepped out from behind Julian. She didn't look scared. She looked bored. She checked her watch. "Actually, yes," she said calmly. "I have a question. Do you know how Wi-Fi works in a steel-reinforced warehouse, Victor?" Victor frowned. "What?" "It doesn't," Emily said. "The signal bounces. It's terrible. That's why I didn't try to hack your internal network to call for help." "Smart," Victor said. "So you're admitting you're trapped?" "No," Emily smiled. "I'm admitting that I needed a stronger signal. So, 10 minutes ago, while we were outside, I linked my phone to the Port Authority's emergency broadcast system. It's a localized frequency that overrides everything." "So what?" Victor scoffed. "You called 911? "No," Emily said, her eyes gleaming. "I started a live stream to the FBI's Cybercrime Division and the Department of Homeland Security." She pointed to a small red light blinking on her phone, which was propped up on a crate behind them. "They've been watching and listening for 3 minutes, Victor. They heard you admit to the arms dealing. They saw the chips, and they definitely heard you order your men to kill us." Victor's face went pale. He looked at the phone, then back at Emily. "Kill them!" Victor screamed, losing his composure completely. "Kill them now and destroy the—" Boom! The skylights of the warehouse shattered inward. Ropes dropped from the ceiling. "FBI, drop your weapons!" At the same time, the massive bay doors of the warehouse were rammed open by an armored SWAT vehicle. Flashbangs detonated, filling the room with blinding light and deafening noise. Victor's men scrambled, firing blindly, but they were overwhelmed instantly. Agents in tactical gear swarmed the floor. Victor turned to run, sprinting toward a back office. "He's getting away!" Emily shouted. Julian didn't hesitate. He took off after Victor. Victor scrambled into his office and tried to slam the heavy steel door, but Julian threw his shoulder against it, bursting into the room. Victor pulled a pistol from his desk drawer. He turned, aiming at Julian's chest. But Julian was faster. He closed the distance in 2 strides, knocking the gun from Victor's hand with a brutal chop. He grabbed the older man by the lapels of his expensive suit and slammed him against the wall. "That," Julian growled, "was for the car." He punched Victor, a solid right hook that laid the crime boss out cold on the floor. Julian stepped back, adjusting his cuffs, breathing hard. Emily appeared in the doorway. She looked at the unconscious Victor Cray, then at Julian. "Nice right hook," she said, a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. "I learned it from a strategist." Julian grinned, wincing as he rubbed his knuckles. Outside, the sirens wailed, a symphony of justice. The courtroom was different this time. It was the federal district court, and it was packed. Marcus Sterling stood before the judge. He looked 10 years older. His hair was thinning, his posture slumped. He wasn't wearing oudwood cologne. He smelled of fear. "Marcus Sterling," the judge read from the verdict, "on the counts of conspiracy to commit treason, money laundering, and fraud, this court finds you guilty. You are sentenced to 25 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole." The gavel banged. It sounded like the closing of a coffin. Marcus turned to look at the gallery. He scanned the faces, looking for someone, anyone, who cared. He saw Silas Vance, who looked away. He saw his mistress, Jessica, who was already texting someone else. Then he saw her. Emily sat in the back row. She was wearing a white suit, immaculate and sharp. Beside her sat Julian Thorne. Marcus stopped as the bailiffs dragged him away. "Emily," he shouted, desperate. "Emily, please. I'm sorry. I didn't know. They made me do it." Emily didn't stand up. She didn't speak. She just watched him with that same cool detachment she had shown the day of the divorce. She gave him a small, almost imperceptible nod, a goodbye to a past life. Marcus was hauled through the side door, his screams fading into silence. Outside the courthouse, the spring sun was shining. The air was crisp and clean. "Are you okay?" Julian asked as they walked down the steps. "I thought I would feel happy," Emily admitted. "But I don't." "What do you feel?" "Light," she said. "I feel light, like I finally put down a heavy suitcase I've been carrying for a decade." A valet pulled up, but it wasn't the Rolls-Royce. It was a bright red convertible, a vintage Jaguar. "Yours?" Julian asked. "Bought it this morning," Emily smiled, putting on oversized sunglasses. "With my first bonus check. I thought I needed something faster." "Where are you going?" "I have one last stop," Emily said. "Do you want to come?" "Always." They drove out to the Hamptons. The drive was quiet, peaceful. They pulled up to the massive estate that had once been the envy of Emily's social circle, the Sterling mansion. It was empty now. The windows were dark. The lawn was overgrown. "The bank seized it," Julian said, leaning against the car. "It's going up for auction next week." "I know," Emily said. "I bought it." Julian looked at her, surprised. "You bought it? Why? It's full of bad memories." "Not for long," Emily said. She walked up the driveway. She didn't go to the front door. She walked to the large stone sign that said, "The Sterling Estate." She pulled a sledgehammer from the trunk of the Jaguar. It was heavy, iron and unforgiving. "Emily?" Julian watched, amused and intrigued. Emily took a deep breath. She swung the hammer. Crack! The stone shattered. The word Sterling broke in half. She swung again, and again. Dust and chips of stone flew into the air. She destroyed the name. She destroyed the legacy. When she was done, she dropped the hammer, panting, sweat glistening on her forehead. "I'm not going to live here," she told Julian. "I'm going to bulldoze the house. I'm donating the land to the city. It's going to be a park, a place where people can walk their dogs and be free." Julian walked over to her. He wiped a smudge of dust from her cheek. "The architect rebuilds," he said softly. "No," Emily corrected him, looking into his eyes. "The architect designs, and I'm designing a new life." She took his hand. "Are you in the blueprint, Julian?" Julian smiled, kissing her hand. "I'm the foundation, Emily, as long as you want me to be." Emily looked back at the ruin of the sign, then at the man who had stood by her when the world fell apart. "Let's go home," she said. They got into the red car. Emily revved the engine, the sound roaring over the quiet estate. She didn't look back in the rearview mirror. There was nothing behind her worth looking at. The road ahead was wide open. And that is how Emily Sterling went from a silenced wife in a grey coat to the woman who brought down an empire. She proves that sometimes the best revenge isn't screaming or fighting. It's succeeding. It's walking away from the people who undervalue you and stepping into a life where you are the queen of your own destiny. Marcus thought he stripped her of everything, but he only stripped her of the things that were holding her back. If this story satisfied your craving for justice, make sure to smash that like button right now. It helps us create more stories where the underdog takes it all. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We have a new story coming next week about a homeless man who wins the lottery but hides the ticket from his greedy family. You won't want to miss the twist ending. Comment below. What would you do if your ex walked out of court and into a billionaire's limo? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.